Today we're going to learn how to add and subtract decimals. Before you watch the video today, make sure you go back and review your place value chart and understand decimal place value, otherwise this might be a bit confusing. Our steps to solve an adding or subtracting problem with a decimal in it is to first line up the decimals, drop down the decimal, and then add or subtract like we normally would using the standard algorithm method. So for our first example, we have 1 4/10 plus 7 84/100ths. So we're going to line them up. So 1 4/10 plus 7 84/100ths equals a number. And I'm going to make sure my decimal is pronounced there. Okay, so it looks a little silly because there's an empty number on the top, but we know that that number is always a 0, so it's a placeholder. And I lined up my decimals, check. I'm going to drop them down to my answer, which is also known as my sum. And then I'm going to add like usual. So 4 plus 0 is 4. 8 plus 4 is 12. Carry that 1. And 7 plus 1 is 8, plus 1 is 9. So our answer is 9 24/100ths. And it's always a good idea to make sure you have your answer highlighted or circled, whatever your teacher wants you to do. It's really important that you do that. I'm going to highlight and circle it so you can see it a little bit better. So 9 24/100ths is our answer for that problem. What about if we have a subtraction problem? Well, let's see what we do. So I'm going to write my decimals where they line up. So give me a moment just to do that. We have 8 704/1000ths minus 4 10,000ths. Okay. It's important to note that the order that you subtract is extremely important whenever you're doing a subtraction problem. Addition doesn't matter so much, but this number goes on top because it comes first. Okay, and I lined up my decimals, I drop it down, and I subtract like normal. So 4 minus 0 is 4. I can't take 1 from 0, but I'm going to borrow. That becomes a 10. This becomes a 6. 10 minus 1 is 9. 6 minus 0 is 6. I have my decimal. And then 8 minus 4 is 4. So my final answer is 4 694,000ths. I'm going to go ahead and circle my answer. So your teacher might ask you to model how to show this. A model is just a visual representation of an equation or something mathematically related. So the first step is to shade the first number. That first number is right there, and we say that not 0.04 but 400ths. And I know that this is a 100 grid, so 400ths I would shade 4 small cubes, and so I'm going to do that right now. And notice my shading is not perfect, and that's okay. Okay, I can tell that generally that this is about 400ths. And I'm adding 2600ths, so I'm going to shade that second number. And I know that there's 6 left over in this rod over here in this column, so I'm going to go ahead and shade the 6. Again, the shading does not have to be beautiful, as long as you can tell. So there's 6, so I did the 6, and now I have 2/10ths or 20/100ths left over, so that's going to be 2 entire columns. Okay. All right. So the last step is to count the unit cubes or the small cubes to find the sum. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I can say 4 plus 6 is 10, 20, 30. So you could say it as 3/10 or 30 hundredths. Either one would be an appropriate way to model that equation. So whenever we are modeling the subtraction way, it starts out similar to addition. So we are going to shade that first number, and that first number is 28 hundredths. So I know that I have 10 in one column. I have 20 in the other, so let me shade those. And remember, it doesn't have to be perfect. If you are learning virtually and you're drawing on a computer, you're going to have maybe some issues like I'm having unless you have a tablet. But, you know, as long as your teacher or whoever's looking at your work understands what you're shading, that's really all that matters. Okay, so I have 2/10 shaded. Now I need to shade 8 hundredths. So that's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Okay, so we have the first number shaded. We have a check there. All right, and the second step is to cross out the amount of the second number. So I'm going to cross that out. So I'm crossing out 15 hundredths. So I'm going to go ahead and cross out my one section first. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. And so my last step is to count the remaining squares to find the difference. So the remaining squares is the remaining squares in red. So I know I have 10 here in this column, and then I have 1, 2, 3, which means that my answer is going to be 13 hundredths.